You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious.
Pretty exciting because we haven't had our fix of Dr. Ben Fordham, MD, and he's been on other more important things like covering elections from the United States of America and being the number one talkback radio broadcaster in the nation, and just fielding, and we feel honoured that he's come back on. He's hosted Ivan, who went up there just last week or a couple of weeks ago. And he's on the line. And Doc, it's so very, very nice to have you back on. I got some questions for you about the election. But first of all, Doc, hello.
Hello, Captain, my captain. Welcome back to dry land.
Yes. Now, before we start, I saw on X, it said there was a report about Victoria Coffee taking on Moccona because they had copied the shape of their coffee jars. And underneath it, it says, read more. Ben Fordham targeted by OnlyFans bank fraud. And I thought, is that a scam, or are you and Jody just working blue on some sideline thing that you're not getting paid enough money at all the things you do and you're just trying to top up the coffers by doing some blue stuff away from home? What is that?
What it is, I mean, for those who don't know, OnlyFans is an adult website, and it works on a subscription basis whereby if Sam Newman wanted to start an OnlyFans page and he would take his kid off, if I'm a subscriber, I can see your images. It's for OnlyFans, and so it's something that's targeted towards adults. And yeah, I was in the bank branch, Sam, and I had a couple of travel cards left over from when we were overseas, and I said, look, can I transfer the money off the travel cards back into my savings account? And the gentleman behind the counter at CommBank brought up my accounts, and I went, and I saw it straight away. I saw OnlyFans, 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 and he was too polite to say anything. So he said, okay, I'm just transferring the money across, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, but can you just open that page up again? I see the word OnlyFans there, and I said, look, I'm sure you hear this all the time, that, look, I swear to God, it's not me. I wasn't on OnlyFans. But I said, mate, I wasn't on OnlyFans, and if there are OnlyFans charges there's something going on. What he then showed me, Sam, is he said, no, look, someone's tried to scam you $50 with an OnlyFans charge, but we've identified it as fraud immediately, and we've reversed it. Then they've had another go, US $50, and we've reversed it immediately. So he then revealed to me that you've got to check your travel cards, because you might be checking your bank statements and your credit card account, but how often would you go and have a look at a travel card that you might only use once a year or once every 2 years? And since I've raised it, look, I've got a message, 10:25 a.m., and we are 10:33 right now, so 8 minutes ago. Belinda, who used to work with me at 2GB, Ben, the OnlyFans fraud happened to us 4 months ago. $200 was taken out, and a day later, $200 was put back into our Commonwealth travel card. Only problem is we just arrived in Hawaii. It was very stressful. We thought it was one of our kids. So, yeah, when I got home from the bank, I said to Jody, I said, look, have you been on OnlyFans? And, of course, she said, no, what are you talking about? And I said, well, but no, Matt Common, the boss of CommBank, has now confirmed that this is a new way for fraudsters to try and get our money. They target travel cards knowing that it's set and forget. You're back from your holiday. You might have $1,000 left on the travel card and you forget about it. So thankfully for me, they didn't take any money out. But I did presume, Sam, the moment that I shared this story, I thought, oh, look, if I was listening to someone else sharing a story like this, I'd be thinking, oh, hang on a moment. Newman's been on OnlyFans and he's been caught. But look, I can assure you, when I was caught in the bank branch, I had a choice of not going home and telling Jody about it. I did go home and tell her about it. I also had a choice of not sharing it with the rest of the country, but I thought, I wonder whether other people have been caught up in this, and we've already received dozens of messages from people as well saying, yep, I've been hit with the OnlyFans thing. But the good news is banks are getting better at identifying fraud. Matt Common told me yesterday, the boss of CommBank, he reckons that they have reduced the amount of scam and fraud movements on Commonwealth bank accounts by 50% year on year. So the scammers are getting smarter, but the banks are getting smarter as well.
Well, now, Doc, as we sit here, I'm looking at Sue Stanley OAM, and I'm saying to her, have you noticed any, what is it called? Friend zone, what is it called?
OnlyFans.
I'm pretending I don't know what it's called. Any OnlyFans credit card deductions come off anything we've been doing away, because we had a discussion. We said, if we really want to make some money, we might start an OnlyFans thing.
He did say that.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe that he did say that.
It was a joke.
But if you guys did couples photos, I think that would work.
Oh yeah, good on you.
No, I'll tell you why.
Closed?
Because you've been very private about your relationship.
Yes.
Which is
So
good.
therefore, the only way to access the content would be through OnlyFans.
Yeah, what, with the gear on or off or what?
Oh, I'd say some tasteful images. I'd probably think about, getting someone like Warwick Capper to come in as a choreographer. And through some of his previous engagements with his last role at an establishment that's also targeted towards adults, he'd be able to find a way whereby, you're showing stuff, but you're not showing everything, if you know what I mean.
If I can ever get any closer to Sue than showing her, I'll let everyone know. It'll be a mission of mine.
Well, I know where to go now. I'll go to Ben and ask Ben and Jody if they can give us some suggestions on what type of poses we can
Well, that's right. And Sue, that's why he took you on the boat, because there's only so far you can run away.
Maybe I could make an OnlyFans account. Do you think I could make some money out of it? Or bring a shotgun along or
with
something?
you and the missus?
Oh, no, just for me.
Oh, just for you? I don't know.
It was great having Ivan in the 2GB studios recently. He dropped by to come and say good day, and he contributed to the editorial meeting afterwards, came up with a few ideas. So,
Very
mate,
professional.
it was great to have you here, mate. Very professional.
No, very good. No, he runs a very professional ship up there. In fact, I think I was listening to the segment last week. I think, Ben, are you now doing 6 hours in a row, are you, as of the 14th of December?
No, Ray Hadley, who is the veteran broadcaster from 2GB, Ray's announced he's retiring at the end of this year. So that means we need to find someone between 9 a.m. and midday. And I don't know, Sam, I think you've proven through this podcast that you certainly know how to attract an audience.
You attract the audience for us, Doc, don't? And the reason you weren't on last week, because it's your designated fortnight that we very great, is because you were asked to. We were away out on the boat, but you were asked to anchor or be part of the election broadcast that Channel 9 was it? You were putting on?
Yeah, no, I was doing it. Yeah, I heard you mention that last week. It was for 9 Radio. I was just doing other bits and pieces, so I wasn't part of the TV coverage, and because they've all been over in the US, but I was also so glued to all the results coming in. I ended up doing some bits and pieces for our radio network, and then I went to a pub in Sydney with a couple of mates, and we sat there and just watched the results roll in, and the bookies were right, the pollsters were wrong, and the reason Donald Trump won, I mean, a lot of the reasons that have been canvassed on this podcast over many months and many years. I think America was sick of the wokery. I think that they were absolutely sick and tired of the open borders. And also they hate being told that there's something wrong with them for supporting Donald Trump. I mean, all of the disparaging remarks that were made about Trump supporters, they just fed straight into the Trump camp. And Trump really played a magic trick on America. He turned venom into votes. So the more people who showed hatred towards Donald Trump, he just harnessed that hatred, exploited that hatred, and said to his supporters, are you going to stand for this, or are you going to get off your backside and get out and vote? And as we know, they voted for him in record numbers, and it was across all demographics: men, women, younger people, older people, college educated, non-college educated, Asians, African Americans, Hispanics. There were people from right across America who just said no to Kamala. And I think the main reason why she failed is that Joe Biden announced early on that he wanted a female of colour to be his running mate. He should have said, I want Kamala Harris. But instead he just said, I want a female of colour. And then he looked around and the only person he could find was Kamala Harris. So from day one, she was seen as a diversity pick. And that's part of the reason why they failed. She wasn't up to the job. She campaigned terribly. She was afraid of having conversations with people, scared of doing press conferences. And I think podcasting has really proven to be such an important tool. I mean, you have a look at what Trump did with the likes of Joe Rogan and Theo Von, where he went out and had conversations like you have every week on You Cannot Be Serious.
McDonald's.
People are looking via the McDonald's thing as well. But Kamala had an opportunity to go on Joe Rogan's podcast while she was in Texas. She refused. And I think that sends a message to people where they think she seems to be afraid. She doesn't have the confidence. And if you can't handle having a conversation on a podcast, then how are you going to be able to handle Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping?
She was the most disgraceful, lying, hypocritical candidate ever, man, woman or beast, and it was a disgrace, she was. And I'll tell you it was a disgrace, your network was a disgrace. Channel 9 went over there, they had no idea, they have no idea what's going on. They put all this crap back. I saw 60 Minutes, they ran a thing with a cow-eyed woman introducing Donald Trump's brother, saying that he cut him out of the will. They campaigned on behalf of the Democrats. They had you watch the Australian, Paul Kelly says the nostalgia train won't lead to the White House for Trump. No one has any idea what they're talking about. Their biases come out. They don't look into what you just said then. They don't look into what made the American public get up and just get out and vote. I don't know how they hold their jobs, and Channel 9 were at the forefront. I noticed when they announced that stupid woman announced that she was conceding that dreadful speech she gave, that Channel 9 said, "Oh, go girl," as if go girl. She was a disgrace, and so was the network that prides itself on giving out just sensible, unbiased commentary. They they fell over themselves to try and placate that woman. She was a disgrace, and they never gave Trump. Do you know 33% of the American public think that the media can't trust them because they gave 85% negative stories on Trump, and no one read between the lines except me, who said he was going to win in January, and I bought some MAGA plates with 47 and I have them on my car at the minute. I knew it was going to happen because we get out and know what the real people are. We do not. We do not get filled up with the bullshit that sells papers or sells. They're just giving out glib lines, and Channel 9 were a disgrace. Talk about an international news gathering organisation. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Are you still there, Doc?
I'm still here, and look, Sam, I'm sure you know by now that I'm not my brother's keeper. I don't feel the need to go speaking on behalf of others. I speak about my own coverage, my own thoughts, my own opinions. I haven't seen every single thing that you're referring to. I don't sit down and glue myself to the couch to be able to watch live coverage on Channel 9 or any other network for that matter. I've only got limited time, and I sample what I want to sample when I need to. And also, I don't pay a lot of attention to what other media are saying. I think you can fall into a trap of paying too much attention to what the media is saying, and then you ignore what the candidates are saying.
Your commentary was your commentary just before I went on that particular attack. Your commentary was absolutely perfect, Doc. You summed it up. You summed it up in 3 or 4 minutes. That's exactly. So no wonder you were giving commentary on the radio. But I tell you what, and they're still going on.
But hang on a moment, just on Nine's coverage. Like I know, for example, Carl Stefanovic was heavily involved in Nine's coverage. Yep. He came on Ray Hadley's show the day before the election and said Trump's going to win. So I didn't watch all of Carl's coverage.
Hang
Carl
on.
Was certainly
so he came on the radio and said that, did he?
Yep,
I bet he didn't do it on the television. I bet he didn't give Trump any credit on the television. I bet he stood the party line.
Sam, as I said, I don't know because I haven't sat down there with a pad and a pen and taken notes the whole time.
No, well, I don't
but my advice would be pay less attention to what other people are saying and reporting, and just back yourself in your own coverage, because clearly you were right.
Yes,
and so,
Doc,
the more time you spend worrying about what other people are saying, the less time you have to share your very well-informed views that have proven to be spot on based on the election result.
Doc, I'll just
hang
jump
on.
in.
I watched the ABC, and there were two old bozos there who were the ABC, and they said the reason they couldn't believe the reason that Trump won because of the January 6th, what they called an insurrection. No one could give a stuff about the January 6th insurrection. That was just complete nonsense. That they cited that the American people have betrayed the whole country by worrying about January 6th. They have no idea. They just make it up. How they hold their jobs is beyond me.
And look, I mean, at the end of the day, Sam, people weren't focused on January 6th when they were voting, just like they weren't focused on every comment or every mistake that Joe Biden ever made. They were voting based on the future. I think they were voting based on local issues. The biggest issue was the open borders. And I've said to people in Australia when they've expressed shock about the election result, I say, look, you know that we are a long way from America and we don't feel the impacts of the open borders policy with millions of people pouring into the country. When we had thousands pouring in via boats, we reacted as a country. Kevin Rudd lost his job as Prime Minister. He was rolled by Julia Gillard because of the boats arriving. So we have a strong reaction in Australia when we feel that people are arriving here unannounced and without the right invitations and certifications to be able to do so. So why would it be any different in America when you've got open borders? And I think the other issue is that on the world stage, I think that they back a hard ass like Trump to be able to deal with the likes of Putin and to deal with Netanyahu in Israel, to deal with Hezbollah and Hamas and any other foreign conflicts that are going on around the world, whether it be Ukraine or China or Taiwan or anything else. I think that overwhelmingly they didn't have the faith in Kamala Harris to be able to handle those world leaders. The world leaders probably would have seen it as a green light to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And Trump's unconventional method of picking up the phone and having a conversation with people, I think it proved to be a hit. And that came through in the Joe Rogan podcast when he spoke about Ukraine and they said, well, what did you say to Vladimir Putin about Ukraine? And he said, I said, Vladimir, don't do it. Don't go in, Vladimir. And that's my very bad Donald Trump impersonation.
Very bad.
And I just think that it's almost a generational thing as well, Sam. I've heard it from people where they say they have phone anxiety. And I say, what's that supposed to mean? And these job recruiters who say, look, younger workers, they have anxiety about talking on the telephone. And, you know, I don't think Americans want someone sitting in the Oval Office just pressing the red button. I think they want them to pick up the black phone first and say, hey, if you do this, I will do that. And that gives other world leaders the opportunity to rethink their position. We know that with one terror leader, at one stage when Trump was president, he was on the phone to this terror leader and he said, look, you've just been handed a photograph. Have a close look at that photo. The photo was of the terrorist's house.
Yep.
And he said, what's this supposed to mean? And Trump said, you work it out. And, you know, look, that's not conventional. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Clint Eastwood kind of stuff, spaghetti westerns. But Americans love Hollywood. They love superstars. They love people who say what they think. And overwhelmingly, they've said, all right, well, this is what we want right now to deal with the world and to deal with local issues.
And that's why the mainstream media are completely off the mark. They got caught up in all that nonsense and they had no idea. They couldn't reflect the mood of the... I'll tell you what's happened in 72 hours, Doc. He's appointed the first female chief of staff ever. New York have stopped giving credit cards and giving debit cards to illegals. US companies are bringing production home. The stock market is hitting all-time high. Bitcoin's an all-time high. New migrant caravans are breaking up. Sorry. Qatar wants to evict Hamas leaders. I'm going to cough because I've wound myself up. Russia is ready to talk. Ukraine are ready to talk. The EU wants to buy American gas and oil because they're going to start to produce it again. He, in 72 hours, has completely turned that country upside down. for the good, and the media had no idea what they were talking about and should be held accountable. How they keep their jobs is beyond me. I should be doing it. Should be on for Channel 9, telling Channel 9 how the real world works.
And the cats and the dogs and the pets are all breathing a sigh of relief.
They're eating the cats. Look, the pressure's now on Donald Trump to deliver. I think that he's in the box seat to do so. He's coming off a low base because the country's cooked. I mean, you have a look at the cities like San Francisco, and I can still remember as a kid going to San Francisco because that's the city where my parents met. They were both working in the United States and they met there, and my sister was born there. So our family's got a strong affinity with San Fran, and to see the images out of San Francisco and it just looks like a rubbish dump. I mean, all of that needs to be cleaned up.
Yep.
He's going to cut company tax. That's a big winner. And what this does, it puts a lot of pressure on politicians here in Australia as well. Donald Trump will now be, stepping into the White House at the time that Peter Dutton's on the downhill road towards an election in May next year. And I've made some comments this morning about what Peter Dutton should be doing if he wants to copy Donald Trump's playbook, and it's all pretty simple if you have a look at it. I mean, he's got probably 5 things that he could do straight away, Peter Dutton, to win the next election. Cut immigration dramatically, reduce the public service, give us a better deal on tax, get more resources out of the ground, and stop the censorship and the wokery.
Number 6, K-Rudd. Is he going to? How many hours has K-Rudd got left?
Here's my tip. I reckon K-Rudd will remain in Washington, D.C., and the reason I say that, really interesting comment from Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott has come out today and said, look, it sets a dangerous precedent when you can allow another country to decide who your ambassador is going to be. Obviously, Kevin Rudd has been humiliated by his past comments on Donald Trump, but if you put a line through everyone who'd ever made a negative comment on Donald Trump, there wouldn't be too many people left. So my suspicion is that Trump doesn't even know who Kevin Rudd is. I mean, he was asked about him earlier this year, but that's only because a question was fed to Nigel Farage to say, hey, listen, Australia wants a question on Kevin Rudd. And so he asked the question, and Trump was briefed beforehand on, Kevin Rudd's a knucklehead, so serve him up 6 of the best, which is what Trump did. But on Kevin Rudd's card at the moment, I don't think Donald Trump expelling him from Washington is a likely result. I would suggest that on Donald Trump's things to do list, that Kevin Rudd wouldn't even rate a mention. So I'd say that Kevin Rudd will probably remain in Washington. However, I might be wrong, Sam, because as you know, with Trump, you never know what he's going to do.
No, he said some pretty ordinary things about him. And so here's a bloke in the Australian called Chambers. He says, Harris is better for Australia than Trump. What does that mean? Why would Kamala Harris would be a disaster for anyone? Trump will get the Western world into line. He will demand that he will probably withdraw from NATO. He'll probably stop funding Ukraine, and that's how that war will come to an end. He'll probably, as you said, Doc, he'll probably show the Hamas leaders another picture of the houses where all their family live, and he said, why don't you come together with Israel and we'll see if we can sort this out in some way. He will do something, and I know Kim Jong-il from North Korea, they got troops over in Russia fighting the Israelis. He'll go over and he'll shake hands with Kim Jong-il. Everything he was criticised for, he would be the best president ever. He is an absolute star, that man.
Well,
this
I
say.
think the world leaders will be nervous because it's the unpredictability of Donald Trump. It's a bit like when Shane Warne is spinning the ball in his hands and he's coming down the pitch and he's thinking, righto, what am I going to bowl here to this batsman? You never know what's going to come out of his hand. And that's part of the magic of someone like Warney. And he's very similar to Donald Trump in some ways because at first when Donald Trump or Shane Warne said something outrageous, everyone would tut and say, how dare you? And then after a while, everyone just accepted, okay, that's just the way they are. And then in the end, Warney would do something wrong and we'd all go, oh, Shane. And now it's like that with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not perfect. He'll say something that's wrong. He'll say something that's inflammatory. And we all say, oh, well, that's just Donald. And it's the John Howard element of love him or hate him, you know where he stands.
As opposed to the woman that he was running against had no idea what she was on about. Now, the World Health Organization have suddenly, can you believe this, backpedaled severely. Tetris, whatever his name is that runs it, he has backpedaled and said, the COVID thing was a bit overdone and we should have honed in a bit more on China and all that. Can you believe it? Because probably Trump will withdraw their support from the World Health Organization because they have been a disgrace. They have the pandemic. NATO are they're on their toes. Can you believe
the other organisation, not just NATO and the WHO, the United Nations as well, is going to have a big question mark over it because they're about to get underway with their new climate change summit, which is kicking off in a couple of days. And Australia's going to be there. Chris Bowen's going to be there. Matt Keane, who now runs the Climate Change Authority, he's going to be there. But Joe Biden's not going. Papua New Guinea, our closest neighbour, has said, look, we go along to these conferences and they just talk the same BS over and over, so we're not going to bother to go. Macron's not going from France, but the Taliban is going. Yes, you heard right. The Taliban has been invited to the United Nations Climate Change Conference, and can you believe it, South Australia wants to host one of these conferences they called COP. So there's a chance that we might end up inviting the Taliban down under to talk about climate change. I think the United Nations, the WHO, they should all be nervous because I don't think they're going to be getting a lot of love from Donald Trump.
The climate change is just a junket for the virtuous and the idle. When you don't have China, Venezuela, Russia, Pakistan, India, when you don't have them in the climate discussions, who pay no attention to emissions at all, it's just a junket for men in suits. Unfortunately, not a lot of women, but men in suits who have got silly John Kerry flying around in jets, trying to tell you how to live your life. Buy electric vehicles. Let your daughter transition into cut her breasts off because she wants to be a boy at 12. And no one pushes back on all that shit. It is absolutely the DEI, the abortions, the climate change, the oil and cars and gas. They've lost complete track of what this world's about.
But Sam, come the end of January, you're going to have none of this stuff to complain about because your man's going to be in the White House, and then any issues are his.
What about the proposition that they still can't let it go? The Democrats have suddenly proposed that Joe Biden resign and install Kamala Harris.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That was one kook who made that suggestion on a TV show. It's never going to happen. Joe Biden is not too impressed with Kamala Harris because she was involved in pushing him out. Biden would have been stomped all over by Trump, and that's exactly what happened to Kamala. But he'll remain there now until the handover period, and then Donald Trump will go in and have a nice, pleasant coffee or tea with Joe Biden, and then he'll take up his post. Elon Musk is going to have a key role there as well. He's going to run the government of the Department of Government Efficiency, and we could certainly do with one of them in Canberra. And the censorship thing has just got to stop. I'd say that Anthony Albanese's misinformation and disinformation bill is dead in the water. It's got through the House of Representatives. There are a number of crossbenchers in the Senate who don't want a bar of it. And I'm interviewing the Minister for Communications on 2GB tomorrow morning at 7:15. Her name's Michelle Rowland. And I'm going to ask her about how she's going to police what we say if this bill gets up. And I want to know who's going to decide what's fact and what's fiction, because if they're applying this kind of censorship regime to the media, well, a lot of the things that I spoke about during the Voice campaign last year, they would have just labelled that misinformation and would have tried to shut it down. It's happening all over the place. But I think the overwhelming response from Australians is we would rather be offended than treated like mushrooms. We would rather confront information online that might be offensive or could possibly be incorrect rather than trusting some bureaucrat in Canberra to decide what we can see and what we cannot see.
Doc, what a star you've been. You mentioned The Voice. Ivan told me he watched the thing on the ABC yesterday where they had Midnight Oil said that the footy show in part was responsible. What'd you say, Ivan? Was it part?
No, they were talking about people who were not aligned with the treaty and Aboriginal
opponents to the
activism.
Aboriginal treaty and the footy
think
show.
I
I've got
saw
to
your
mention, I
your
wear
photo.
that as a badge of honour. We couldn't agree less with the Aboriginal treaty as the yes/no vote came on, and that was that Peter Garrett, that bozo that was the Minister for Pink Bats under the someone's government. He should stick to singing songs and speaking to secluded audiences like the ABC.
Well, if I could just go back to what I said before, for all of the listeners of You Cannot Be Serious, just mark the date down in the diary, late January 2025. From that point on, Sam Newman is going to be a happy chappy, and he won't be worried about any issues in the world, because if there are problems, they're going to be Donald Trump's problems to fix. So we can only hope, for the sake of America, Australia and the rest of the world, that he carries through on all of his key promises, bring the company tax rate down, shut off the border, end all of the woke madness, and I think from then on it'll be happy days, Sam.
Doc, what a star you are and still are, and thanks for coming on, Doc. Any other
Good
fun?
on you, mate, and it's great to have you back on
bloody
dry land.
star.
I was once in a school production of HMAS Pinafore. Do you know the song from that? I am the captain of the Pinafore and a mighty good captain too. And I'm never sick at sea. What never? No, never. What never? Well, hardly ever.
Holy Christ. That is extraordinary, Doc. Well done, my man.
Welcome back to dry land. I love you all and talk to you soon.
Good on you, Doc.
Very good.
You start.
Okay, bye-bye.
And so the Doc has gone. I just wanted to, I just wanted to give this shout out before we just got a very special guest here just waiting for this. So I'm just giving a shout out, Ivan, to Miles from Bondi Beach. Apparently, michaelchristianmenswear.com has been up at Bondi Beach, and so I don't know how he knows Miles. And John from Bentley. That's it. Just John from Bentley wants a shout out. The hats. He can't keep up with the hats. The what do you call those? The golf hats.
The bucket hats.
No, not bucket hats. I haven't those. What?
Caps?
Peak caps. Well, the caps. Yeah. With You Cannot Be Serious. He just cannot get more underage children in the Vietnam to make them in the sweatshops. He just can't keep up with it. While they say put the Adidas and the Puma gear aside and all the Rebel stuff and all of Nike, that when the kids are finished and tired and can't make any more, then they get on to making the stuff for us. So at least we admit it. Nike don't admit it.
Now, I've got a question for you before we sign off. There's a big fight on Saturday, Australian time midday to about 3 p.m. Mike Tyson and YouTuber Jake Paul.
Yep.
Who do you like? Mike Tyson or Jake Paul?
Well, I like Mike Tyson. I don't know who Jake Paul is. Has this just got up for the tourists? Is this a fair income fight? Has it been designated who's going to win yet? Or
we're still waiting for that. But it's a 10-round, 2 minutes, not 3 minutes.
How old is Mike?
58.
And how old's the other bozo?
24, 25.
Well, if Mike Tyson beats that bloke, beats the 24-year-old, he should seriously consider his future.
Well, $20 million bucks
as a human being.
Oh, well, big money anyway. Put your money on Tyson.
All right. Well, that's it. So, well done. Anything else, Ivan? You said just finally, Ivan, you said that there was a ruckus. I haven't been here. There's been a ruckus in Burke Street with immigrants banging drums and disrupting the neighbourhood, and the coppers coming down there and told them to move on, and no one's moving on, and people can't get any sleep because this goes on day and night through the night. And suddenly, I don't know if you said this, but suddenly the report that the neo-Nazis had come down, and suddenly there wasn't an immigrant to be seen almost overnight.
I believe, from what I was told, that is spot on.
Can we give any credit to anyone who's a neo-Nazi for any reason at all?
No, I don't think we can, but
just for that reason we can.
Yeah, for that reason,
Not
we can.
because they're having to go at the immigrants, they're having going at anyone that disrupts people from sleeping during the proper hours by banging drums and drawing attention to themselves. Don't know where the police are, don't know why they can't act, but someone else is, we've got vigilantes taking up the cause to keep the
We do. Burke
peace.
Street is not what it used to be.
All right, well, that's it. That's it, isn't it? Sue, is that it? All right.
That's all, folks.
Right, that's it.